hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I don't know how many years this has been, but I tend to I'm asked each year to come to Top Drawer and speak, and it's one of my favourite things, so thank you for asking me to come back. I recognise so many faces in the crowd, and it's really, really lovely to be here. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm just going to tell a little bit of my story, and then I'm going to go into some of the things that I believe to be true for this year. Obviously, this is an extraordinary year that we're in for small business owners, and so I hope that I can share a few tips and thoughts that might help you. So my name is Holly Tucker. I started my small business love affair about 20 years ago, and it has been a magnificent journey. I think that I found out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, what will be on my gravestone, and I hope it will be that I inspired a lot of people to go after their dreams and literally live their lives. And I'll talk about why I'm obsessed with business, but it's not just because I think it's a wonderful way to spend your 9 to 5. There's a lot more in it than that. Just to go back to who I am, I do believe when I meet small businesses and founders, I always talk to them about going back to themselves as children, because I actually think that we have a golden thread to our loves when we were kids. This is me. That's me when I was about 3 or 4 in personalised bedding, where my mum had a small business called Hollyhocks, and my pillowcase and my sheet had embroidered holly on it. Little did I know over years that personalised bedding would be such a great seller. This is myself and the late Queen, actually. I've not obviously spoken since she passed. I was lucky enough to meet her twice in my life. One was receiving my MBE in 2014, and this was showing her around my school, where it does look like I'm goody two-shoes because I was head girl. But I do tell my son, who's just coming on 18, that 1 year before that, I was nearly expelled, not suspended, expelled, due to a certain amount of fun I had in 6th form and a swimming pool and a disco. And we'll leave the story at that point. I was also the young engineer, again, a bit of a goody two-shoes story, but actually, thank goodness it didn't work out for me. I invented the recycling bin, and I thought I was going to have a career in bins. And again, the universe collided where it said, no, you're not, Holly, going to have a future in bins. And so I didn't get the patent. I was a small child who loved to know what I was giving people. My mum would give me a gift and say, crack on. And I'd be like, no, what's in this parcel, Mum? Will it match the person I'm giving it to? Which very much annoyed her. And here I am at the age of, I think I was 17 there. It was the first day at work. So I went to work at 17. It was the day I got my university. It's the day I didn't go to university. It's the day I got my A-level results. I got 2 A's and an E in business studies. And so again, luckily my son's academic. But I've always kept that one in my pocket in case I need to tell him, that anything's possible in life, darling. But yes, I started my career at the age of 17 and have worked ever since. But because I did have a nickname called Holly Hurricane, I was in a hurry. And so I think now I look back, I'm 45 now, life will rebalance you. So if you're too much in a hurry, you go after things too much, the world has a way of, I'm sure you all know this, just calming you down and giving you a few lessons. And so I found myself marrying my childhood sweetheart, again, something I would definitely not recommend Harry does, and divorcing at the age of 23. And at the same time, I found out I had a brain tumor, and it was like a really bad year, I must say. But what it did do is it sort of rebalanced me, and I'm sure all of us have maybe even started our businesses out of adversity or out of something that's happened to us, and we found ourselves building ourselves out of our issues with our mental health or in our lives or coming out of a divorce or cancer. There's so many stories. Mine starts, and for those who do know me, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's talking about the vegetable wreath again. But I would say that this saved me, right? So for anyone who does need saving, it's like a life raft. It's a ring that you would throw in the water. But mine was a vegetable wreath, which I started making going through my bad year. If I hadn't gone to University of Life, I was going to go and do art. I wanted to be creative. I'm sure most of you want to be creative in your jobs. And so for me, it was going to become a gazillionaire making wreaths. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. My father, who's an accountant, had other ideas. He maybe did say, you're not going to be able to pay your rent making wreaths. But I had other ideas. So I made these vegetable wreaths, and I thought to myself, I'm going to go and sell them in the local market. I lived in Chiswick at the time, and there wasn't a local Christmas market. So being Holly Hurricane, I decided I'm going to go and create the market. Then I'm going to have the best trestle table, and then I'm going to sell all the wreaths, and it's going to be amazing. And I did do that. So in my lunch break, I would run downstairs with my brick of a mobile phone. Remember Mercury 1-to-1? That you could only make calls, didn't you, in the M25? And I would sit down and I would call all these small businesses and I say, oh my gosh, I've got this fair and you've got to come along. And they did. And so I had my first fair and it was amazing. I sold all my wreaths, but I wasn't even bothered about the wreaths. I'd moved on from that business. I was going to put on events because when you pull together, like today, amazing small businesses, something magical happens. So I thought, right, I'm going to go to all the town halls, even though they're leaking. I'm going to put on amazing fairs, small businesses. I'm going to pull them all together because I've got an eye of who I like. And that's what I did. I started Your Local Fair, and that must have been in, I don't know, 2002 I started. And so that's where my love affair of small businesses began. I obviously realized very, very quickly that A, I was having a nervous breakdown doing it by myself. 2, that town hall roofs really do leak, and it really does rain, and it's really, really hard to get everybody all over the country to one physical location. So this is then when the idea happened. I wrote to my business partner, Sophie, who was my boss when I went to the University of Life in advertising. And I said, I think we should do the fairs, but under an internet roof rather than the town hall roof. Because I think this internet thing, Sophie, is going to take off. I don't know why. This was also, remember, some of you, actually, there's a good age range here. You'll remember the dial-up modems, and we'll remember that we didn't have social media. And so that was the era. So in 2005, Sophie and myself sat around the kitchen table. Because I had been in a hurry, I was blessed enough to find my partner for life, who I got married to in lockdown after 18 years. We had our son, Harry. He was 3 months old when we started Not on the High Street. And we literally sat around a kitchen table and said, how can we pull all these magical small businesses together, like the town hall, but use the internet so that it's on for 24 hours a day? We had no idea that we would be the third marketplace in the world after Amazon and eBay. We were before Etsy. One basket checkout hadn't even been invented. Well, it had by eBay in America, and I was so naive, I actually called them as if they were going to give me their technology. I was like, oh, hi, can I speak? I mean, who do you speak to? Can I speak to, I don't know, the head of One Basket Technology in eBay America? But that's what we did, and that was back in 2005. We launched April 2006. Again, that beautiful word, naivety, which I think gets a lot of bad rap. I think it's wonderful. You should be naive. You don't want to know what everyone's done before you and the pit holes and things like that. And I have only got really half an hour to speak, so you can imagine that for me, this is the old branding, the way I built Not on the High Street. But 17 years on, it's been an incredible journey. £1 billion has been pumped into the UK economy. Little did I know when I was calling. I've spoken to a number of people here who said that I stalked them to come on to Not on the High Street. You know, some people I did for 2 years. I would just literally call and call and call. And little did I know, you know, they would ask me, how big is this going to be? And I'd be like, we're never ever going to do 1 million. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a small, So it was incredible to go on this journey. We've helped over 5,000 small businesses, over 10,000 people that they've employed, and well over 900 small businesses have gone on their 1 million plus journey. And I see a couple in the audience today, actually, and I remember having a card made, 1 million reasons to celebrate, when small businesses who came literally from the kitchen table, and then I saw them doing £1 million in a year, and it was just unbelievable. One of the best moments of my life was growing Not on the High Street. I stepped away a few years ago from that business fully, and so I'm not part of it as a day-to-day anymore. But what I did realize is that through that journey of being the CEO, chairwoman, founder, I was wearing 3 Spanx, high heels, boob dress. It was a bit of a booby dress, but it was more of a tube dress, Holly, a tube dress. And I would find myself, my PA running after me, going to the ladies, briefing me in my next meeting, 14 meetings a day. I was turning into not the Holly Hurricane that started Not on the High Street. I was becoming the she-man. I was becoming the female tech entrepreneur. I was becoming the lady that the Financial Times would like to write about. And that's not who Holly Hurricane is. So Holly Hurricane decided that actually to readdress who I was, had a bit of a breakdown, lots of therapy, and decided that actually my mission in life is to help everybody live their dreams, and that is what I love, to see you do what you love. And truly, I have said until the day I'm 90, I'm going to be doing this. So I'm going to be here cheerleading everybody that has a dream, anyone that started a company, because it's tough. But what I wanted to do was build something that hadn't been built before. You know, if you started a business, where would you turn to? Maybe the government's website. So I decided to create Holly & Co. Co standing for, and I wish I would write these things down because I always go to say them, because there's so many brilliant CEO words, but I always say community. Well, let's say community, collaboration, congregation, Harriet, lots of other CEO words. And so we built Holly & Co. And what I was interested in doing is making it a multi-dimensional space where you could watch, read, listen, touch, speak, hear about inspiration and advice. And so Holly & Co. Has 4 main missions. Again, I'm going to talk about having purpose in your business. To help build a business doing what you love, I believe that's the complete key. Encourage everybody to vote with their money and support independence. Empowering female entrepreneurs, and also inspiring, I can see a couple of the next generation sitting over here, not just calling you guys out, but inspire the next generation to be entrepreneurial and build their own brands. And I also slightly wanted to get the grey out of business. This is business for me. This is Holly & Co. This is about celebrating. We're creative. It's a soulful journey, isn't it, building your own businesses? You develop, you see more about yourself as you grow your own company, and it's something that we would never turn our backs on. And so I've had a lot of fun putting 2 fingers up to the grey world of business and saying I'm bringing literal colour to grey. How I'm doing that is I have a podcast, in case you haven't listened to it, called Conversations of Inspiration. I'm on my 170th episode. The most amazing founders ever. We get them to read a letter to their younger self at the end, and there is, well, my son always says, Bubba, you know, did you have tears today? And I'm like, yep. And it's literally a 90% success rate in tears. I'm not saying that we want the tears, but listening to Johnny Bowden cry was interesting. So then you've got, I say that in a nice way, by the way, in a soulful way. It has been a most incredible journey for me to hear amazing founders tell the truth of what it was like to start a business. I have a small business newspaper on the site, holly.co. You can find me on Instagram at Holly Tucker. We also have a campaign that we do twice a year, campaigning for people to support small businesses. We have the Independent Awards, where we give away £100,000 a year to small businesses. We have a shop. Well, we did have a shop. This is my first outing. Unfortunately, I had to close my shop on Friday. A lot of tears last week. Today was really hard walking past my shop where our offices are. And after 6 years, we had to close the door. And I'm sure all of you are feeling it. We had lower footfall than ever. Every single cost that we had went up, and our landlord was going to double the rent. And we were already suffering. And so after 6 years, I made a decision on Tuesday. It was coming. You know when you know there is an issue and you just keep putting the plaster on it. By the way, it always bubbles to the surface. So I ripped off the plaster on Tuesday. I made a decision. The guys was like, when are you going to shut? And I said, on Friday. Because actually, when you realize that you're pouring energy into something that's not working, you've got to rip off the plaster. It's what I'm telling myself. And move that energy into something that is going to build your future. And we also have events. But let me tell you about a few things that I know to be true when it comes to this journey. And actually, it's going to be it's a tough existence, isn't it? You've heard me saying that I've had to shut my own shop. You can hear the news. All we're going is from doom to gloom and back to doom again. And we've never known anything like it. And yet, with adversity, there is always opportunity. For everyone here, you're either an entrepreneur or a founder, you run an independent, or you are an independent. I think that that's what makes us completely and utterly unique. If you followed me during the pandemic, I ran SME SOS, where we talked a lot about the P word, the pivot word. We talked about being a chameleon. We talked about the fact that we can change. And I don't think you quite really realize that you can do that. I shut a shop on Friday, and I'm building the future on the Monday. No big corporation can do that. That is the power you have. And that is why you can go up against bigger businesses, because you are a chameleon and you can move fast. So what do I see coming up, and why, am I passionate about a few of these subjects? Holly & Co. became a B Corp business a few months ago. It took us frigging ages. I think the pandemic didn't help. It took us 2.5 years to get to this point. And a lot of people look at doing good about being ethical with our sustainability and our eco-awareness. And by the way, 100%, that is now expected. I think if we had spoken maybe, 5 years ago, maybe even less, it would have been an either or. You can take it or leave it. That's good for them, but not for me. I would say 100% now your customers saying that is a given. So you should have that in your hearts and souls as a given. I'm actually talking about capital that sits behind businesses doing good. And again, I don't think it's right in this day and age to have a percentage of your sales go to a charity. So I think the tick box days are over. I think you can't tick box anything. And I do believe that actually it's about what model, what social responsibility are you putting to your business? I wrote an email today about the Queen and duty, the word duty. And that's the thing that will live with me, thanks to Her Majesty, is my idea of duty. I had a duty to my community. No one was paying me. Actually, it was definitely losing quite a bit of money. I have a duty to the planet, to the consumers, to small businesses. And I think that this is something that you all must really think about. What do you do more than what you sell or what you run? Like, that's the question, because that is the narrative you can put through all of your marketing. So when you don't have big marketing budgets, what is the story that you're communicating? Landfill is not the future, by the way. I'm not saying, and maybe some of you might be thinking, oh, I won't swear, but the thing is that you can come off things slowly, right? But the point is that your consumers of the future are 100% those that I would call the sort of C consumer. They are caring, they're charitable, they're conscious, and they're campaigners. Okay, so you might think of Generation Z and maybe this isn't for me, but actually everybody is thinking about this. So maybe they're gifting presents through Choose Love, the amazing charity. I've just interviewed Josie, the founder. My goodness, what a woman. She's if you know the T-shirt, the Choose Love T-shirt, staying in the UK rather than taking an extra flight, maybe questioning who is making the clothes that they're buying, campaigning and being vocal about what they believe in. When we shut the shop, so many people have gone onto social media to say how much they couldn't believe that we had closed. Obviously, I slightly also wanted to write and say, well, we're closed because maybe you didn't come enough. And it's a very difficult conversation to have, isn't it, with your consumers? But actually, the point is that we have a different consumer, and certainly at Christmas time, when we're all coming into Christmas, what is your message that you're going to be sending out there that's showing that you're doing something else but selling the next gift? Nearly half of millennials surveyed would spend more on their product or service if it meant that they were supporting a small business, compared to 27% of consumers aged 55 and plus. The future of citizens are campaigners. They vote with their money. That is a lovely picture, if I did have it, with a lovely wooden coin, which is not coming up. Let's move on. So the next point is creativity. Ultimately, we are going to have a hard time coming up this Christmas and maybe into next year. One of the things that we have found is that the moment that we bring creativity into our business, everything soars. When we are living in a world of social media, how are you bringing your business to life creatively? It is gone past the point that you can have an autumn stock, a winter stock, the shop changes a couple of times, maybe your emails are not progressing, maybe they're sporadic. The point is that we are desperate to consume creativity, and you are the creative hubs of your brand. You don't have an agency. I doubt you have agencies. I'm sure you are the agency. You're the graphic designer, the bin people, aren't you? You're the coffee makers, the toilet cleaners, amazing array of jobs that you have. So one of the things that I absolutely love is in these hard times, how are you going to be surprising to your consumer? How are you going to do something different? Are you going to give them in color Christmas cards, color me in Christmas cards? Are you going to use packaging that doubles up as wrapping paper? Are you going to help create a Christmas Day checklist? Are you going to have a Christmas lunchtime planner? Are you going to offer rewards for every time they tag you in a social media post? The thing is I don't think we do enough in thinking about the small little wins that makes our business highly interactive and highly creative. Creativity, by the way, is here. It resides in small businesses. Look at the larger businesses when they try and be creative. Okay, and I'm not going to name any names, but it isn't great, by the way. And so this is where all the trends start. You are the fire starters, and potentially sometimes you're feeling a bit low, maybe a bit beaten up, and you don't feel like being the fire starters. And the point is that everything starts with small businesses, as far as I can see. The next point I would make is that actually it's about empathy. It is a word that we use, you know, the A word, authenticity. Everyone's so authentic, unless they're not being authentic on social media, where they only post 1% of their life, not the 99% of life with greasy hair, tracksuit bums that the dog's thrown up on, whatever it is. But the point is that actually I think that this is the power of small businesses, is that they need to see you. And I don't know if some of you don't feel confident enough to go out and put yourself out there, but actually that is the power, is when the customer sees you as the founder. And so when you think about it, we have 1 in 400 trillion chances of being born. That is the miracle that you actually are. And so what you're actually saying is interesting. Even if your husband or your partner finds you boring as, the point is you're not, actually, to the rest of us. There is a power in being human. Very, very, very few brands have mastered harnessing the power of being human. Like if I actually ask you, put your hands up if you know a business that you emotionally connect to. So all of us got emails, didn't we, this morning in our inbox, and we're going through them, aren't we? Delete, delete, delete. Oh, I like that one. Delete, delete, delete. Tell me, anyone, put your hands up if one of them has stayed with you and emotionally connects to you, and you also transact with that business. You buy from them. Go ahead. No issue. What do they do? Okay, I'm going to have a look at that. That's great. Okay, that's a one. Okay, fantastic. So that's no issue. Anyone else in the maybe in the mainstream with the millions of pounds of budget, because I think small businesses do such a great job. Yep, over there. Fashion for Good. Yeah. Fashion for Good is another one. Anyone else, a larger organization? Adobe. Thank. Did they? Right, okay.
And so it was 0 for 3 months.
Right, so they did something with their payment plan.
Free. So
amazing. That is an amazing thing.
Help.
Yeah, yeah. The point here, though, isn't it unbelievable that not all of you have got your hands up? How long have you been on this planet? And there's no one emotionally connecting with you that you spend your money with. So think about that. That is insane. Think about how much money is being spent. Now, that is your opportunity, by the way. Your opportunity is to tug at the heartstrings, not with a soap story or a violin, but is to actually connect with your customer for the fact that today you just witnessed no one really could put their hand up and say, that business nails it. Also, one of the other things is that when you're going through the Christmas periods and things, it's about empathizing with your customers. It's about knowing that things are going to be tough. It's about actually having the ideas or the emails or the social posts where you're empathetic to what they need and what they might be going through, but you're not dismissive of the fact that people will spend this year. So it's all about the connection that you make. One of the other points I would say is that customer service matters. And yes, there is a space for algorithms, absolutely. And there's a space for chatbots, completely. But good old-fashioned customer service, that's what you can do. The amount of people telling me about having a relationship on DMs through their Instagram, giving them a video tour of what they could buy and then converting has been unbelievable. And I think that's the thing. It's this forgotten thing that humans can interact with humans and you can close a sale. And actually, isn't it better to have increased that conversion rate than just scattergun? So have you thought about how you're going to operate this Christmas? Have you thought about how you're going to do old-fashioned customer service? When's the last time you picked up the phone to a customer and just said, hey, I saw you ordered. I'm just wondering, I've got something here that I think you might like, or I've got some wrapping paper. I'm just going to put that in there. It's end of season, but I've seen that you've shopped with me a number of times. This is so powerful. Again, it's what we need to do when times are tough, but also think about the loyalty you're building with that customer for next year. None of us know what's happening next year. It's about 1,000 true fans, isn't it? And it's not about 100,000 people just passing you by. It's 1,000 true fans who are going to come time and time again, and they're going to be your advocates. Also, I do believe that there is a superpower in the word of mouth, okay? So when you're talking to your customers, are they spreading the word? You know, I bought some wallpaper the other day. It took 6 days for someone to get back to my query. I'm like, for real? Are you actually here on this planet? The next day, I went for an amazing Jamaican lunch yesterday on the river, and this wonderful family business, and she asked me, could I leave a review? And she told me all about her family, and I literally there and then made a Google review. So I supported her, but then I reviewed her. Are you asking your customers to support you? Because definitely they want to. The other thing I would say is there is no such thing as over-communication. I mean, I think there actually is if your communication is terrible. But let's say you're really proud of your communication. I think to tell people, you know, we're going to have strikes, aren't we? We might have a lot of things coming up that we can't control. I would say that that is definitely, again, your strong point. To over-communicate. They are in a rush. They've got a Christmas present. They're seeing their family a week before Christmas and your presents haven't arrived. Over-communicate. The other thing I would say is for anybody who is thinking about getting a shop or a physical space, I do believe that the future is this hyphenated future. I do believe that the physical presence on the high street is critical. It's just how you approach it. It's how you approach it, maybe bringing people in to share the cost. How can you bring your brand to life? I don't think there's anything better than being physically present to bring your brand to life. So I do believe in the independent high street. It's just the way that we're going to operate might be different. And I know that, I wanted to say that in case, well, Holly, you shut down your shop. I do think it is a multi-channel approach with a physical space involved. I do think it's going to be the future, be it your YouTube channel, your studio, your photography studio, whatever it is, you can always use your spaces differently. We're going to have 10 minutes of questions, but before I do, my last point is just to say to get very, very comfortable with being uncomfortable, which probably, by the way, you're all pretty feeling uncomfortable already. But my point is, I think as small businesses, we always search for the silver bullet. We're always thinking, aren't we? Oh my gosh, that's going to solve it. When I get that system in place, that will be it. My whole life is going to change. And then we do it, and we hire the person, and we think that they're the best thing since sliced bread, and then we realize they're definitely not, and we have to get rid of them, whatever it is. I just wanted to say that one of the things that I do is I get very used to being uncomfortable, and I get more worried when I am comfortable. And I know that's quite exhausting, but it is the journey that we're on. And I would say Jake Humphreys told me this, Wilfred Emmanuel Jones, the Black Farmer, told me this, that being uncomfortable is one of the best places you can be as a small business because you're innovating all the time. You never think that, okay, I've got this sorted, I'm just going to go away. I think any of us do this, but, but actually there is no silver bullet when it comes to small businesses. And I always end my talks with something I believe in. I think I'll say this for the rest of my life, that on my 40th birthday, I worked out, because I love efficiency, which I'm sure all of us do, how many days I had on this planet. And it was 29,000 days. And then I got worse news, which was actually, when you worked it out, I actually only had 14,000 days because I was turning 40. And far from being depressing, what it's done from the second that I found this out, I knew that every single day counts, and that the power was in me to make a difference for my next day, and to relish that actually it's not just a Pinterest saying, it is about the journey of running a business and being creative rather than any destination. Unless you've got Necker Island on your list, it is about the journey. I open the floor to any questions anyone might have, but thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope anything I've said has helped you on your quest.
Any questions? Who's going to start us off? I think you've shared so much inspiration.
Oh, we've got one question over here.
Okay, I'm coming.
So firstly, thank you, Holly. You're incredible and such an inspiration to so many small businesses. I think something that I and my business partner admire about you so much is your ability to be vulnerable, to be honest and real, and that's shone through this week. What you've been through must have been incredibly challenging, but you've used that to come here and motivate all of us, so thank you for that. But I just wanted to kind of see if maybe you could share some words of wisdom about how you lean into that honesty and vulnerability, and how we can use that to help us build communities and improve our businesses.
I think if I look back at my experience at Not on the High Street, I had a different world there. It was all about the corporate world, ultimately. Not that I intended it to begin like that, but I found myself not only doing a job that was a job, it felt like a job, but I also felt that I wasn't Holly. I felt like my name was Holly, but I wasn't Holly. And I think one of the things I've done with Holly & Co., and I'm sure you do with your own businesses, and maybe if you're not doing it and you're finding yourself playing a sort of character, is to actually get back to who you are. Because I think all of us are building businesses maybe to retire in. I think we don't have another plan. And so it's really, really important that we actually understand that. So for Holly & Co., I'm very, very confident to say that I really will retire at 90, but I hope to be running Holly & Co. until that day. And that means that I have to actually be truly who I am in order to not be distracted every day by playing a part. And I think we can all get into that situation, can't we, where we play a part. Either that we're trying to be someone who knows everything about our organizations. We don't like the accounts, let's just say. So we make ourselves do it. And actually that takes a bit of our joy away rather than hiring the accountant or giving it to someone else to do. And I think that this 29,000 days, what we've seen, haven't we, this week past, is anything can happen. And there's no control over costs, energy, a war, a pandemic. So actually, every day that we're in our businesses, what I try and strive for is to be every day more me. And so that's what you're seeing here today. I'm still a bit on the journey, definitely, but that is what I strive to be. And so far, the more me I've become, the better my business has become as well. Thank you for the question. Thanks for your lovely words as well. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, down at the front. Feel like challenge Annika.
Obviously, you've had a journey that's had some adversity in it throughout your life, and I think that's very fair to say that affects a lot of people, those kind of challenges that come up in life. What do you do now to keep on top of your business, but also your wellness? So do you actually sort of face into sort of health challenges, or what do you do to kind of help mental awareness, or what do you do for yourself?
Well, I did nothing for decades and decades. Always my business was first. Actually, the more my businesses grew, the more unhealthy I grew. So I did nothing, sweet nothing, until the pandemic. And that was a shift for me, which was the first time I'd ever worked at home for like 20 years or something. And I found that morning, that morning scramble, I got an hour back. And so I went for a walk, and I thought, my gosh, there's nature out here, and there's seasons and trees, and gosh, isn't this beautiful? And so from that moment, I allowed myself to realize that actually, again, to the point, that if I want to be 90 in my business, I better start looking after myself. That was 2020. And now I find myself, I'm swimming the Serpentine on Saturday. Only 1 mile, not like the 3-mile race. But anyway, we've got to start somewhere. I've taken up fitness now. I am practicing what I preach. I am looking after my health. And it's definitely been a journey. But I've realized that the more I'm falling in love with my company, and myself, actually, the more I'm looking to stay around. And I think that there is just this moment, isn't there, certainly for women who tend to put themselves at the bottom of every frigging list there is. There's no ability for you to get to the top. But I've just realized that actually nothing functions around me without me. So actually, it's not a selfish act, it's a selfless act to look after myself. And so that's what I've done, and I'm trying to encourage my team to do the same. But, it's taken until I was about 42 to get to that point, I have to say. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time, and have the best day. Thank you very much.